Hey guys, really quick video just to talk through the rack, just to try and explain some things, hopefully share some tips and tricks. I think the reason we get into the big rabbit holes is there's really no right or wrong way of doing this stuff. This is just my way, works for me. I'm trying to sort of copy a couple of ideas that mostly Lukather and a little bit of Stevens, but there's a million racks out there, there's a million ways of doing it, there's a million builders, whatever. So this isn't right or wrong, this is just my way of doing things. Couple of things I would like to stress though, is you will get ground loops and you will get hums. That's pretty much inevitable. So you've just got to manage that, and there's a couple of different ways of managing that. I'm using the Eventide hum eliminator, which I think is either owned by Dunlop or MXR now or anything. Just Google the hum eliminator. It's really, really useful. Doesn't get rid of hum, but it will just help manage it a little bit better. The second part of that strategy is then noise loops or noise gates. And so there's a couple of different ways I'm doing that, is using pedals in the back. I'll show you that in just a second. But also the fractal stuff, the noise gates in the fractal stuff are amazing. And the great thing I love about the Axe effects, the fractal, is that I can do effects in the front, so before the preamp and after the preamp section. So before, I'm talking things like dirt pedals, maybe like a phaser pedal. All of that's coming from the fractal, and then of course after the preamp is all of your post effects, so things like delays and reverbs and anything else that's fancy. Also the fractal is doing a bit of that as well. So the second part of my advice would be seriously think about how much you want to commit, how hard you want to commit to doing an 80s or a 90s rack, because the fractal units are amazing and it will do 50-60% of the things that you were trying to do in one simple box. Much cleaner, much cheaper, and much quieter. People like John Petrucci as an example, Steve Vai as another example, are using fractals in their racks in the 21st century just because they are so good, so quiet, and so much more cost affordable. What I've tried to do is a little bit of both. So I've tried to go for a bit of the 80s, 90s vibe, but honestly the fractal is doing most of the work. Otherwise I'd be, the rack would be probably twice the size that it is here. So that's my tips and tricks. The way I've done things is I'm using RJM loopers. Again, there's a bunch of loopers around the world. There's a bunch of builders. Please talk to your looping company, or I found it really useful anyway, I should say, to talk to RJM about the sort of things that I was trying to do. And they responded and they provided advice, and they said, this is how we would approach this. You might want to think about whatever. So it's also useful to touch base with your looping company as soon as possible, even when you've just got some ideas, because you will have problems, you will have questions, you will have things to solve when you're putting the whole rig together. It's really good to get an idea of the sort of level of support that you are going to get from them once you've purchased their product. And RJM are just amazing. I love them. Their support is fantastic. Their products are amazing. Just works for me. And so that then leads me to the mastermind. Your foot controller needs to manage all of this stuff. Again, Fractal built some really great foot controllers that will work natively with the Axe-Fx and therefore can be considered sort of like a master controller. In my particular case, I'm using the RJM, and it does the same thing, just a little bit differently. So check it out. Right, what else have we got? Of course, we've got compressors in the Axe-Fx, but this is a good example of where I just wanted to go old school. It doesn't add too much noise, adds a little bit of noise, but it's not too bad. So I just wanted to go old school. I had an opportunity to grab one, so there it is. The BBE has gone out of favor in the last decade or so. Again, it's not better or worse than the Fractal. I had a chance to grab it, so I grabbed it. Both of those are in the front, what I call the front end. That means pre-amp, before the preamp, and we'll get to that in a moment. Now, the Line 6 chorus is really interesting. I saw both Luke and Steve Stevens were using the Line 6 chorus unit, and so I looked into that a little bit further. Opportunity came up to grab one, so I grabbed one. Look, again, the Fractal's got some amazing choruses in it, both pre-amp and post-amp type choruses. And I do use both of those in my patches, but the Line 6 unit just came up. It claims to be a tri-chorus, a stereo tri-chorus. So we'll hear that and check that out. Just a bit of flexibility there. Now the Korg is freaking amazing. It was one of the first units that I got before I started putting everything together. A friend put me onto one of these. Hey Kurt, if you see this, thank you for all your help, mate. The Korg is freaking amazing. It's called the DL8000. It does some amazing delays. Does all of the Lexicon stuff. It does the TC electronics stuff. So I've managed to then source a couple of Lexicons. I don't need it to do the Lexicon stuff anymore. I'm now getting it to do the TC 1210 stuff because I cannot for the life of me find a TC 1210 anywhere. If you know where there is one, please let me know, because nobody can seem to find them. Nobody is selling them. So this is as close as I'm going to get. Look, I think that's a really good point. You know, all of this is just about compromise. You're never, ever, ever going to get a Luke rack because his was custom built. Bradshaw built his, all his stuff. So and we can do things better now in the 21st century. So this is really just about compromise and where you're willing to compromise. The Fractal is absolutely essential. I cannot say enough good things about the Fractal. It is incredible. Whether you want to get an Axe-3 or an Axe-2, I think the Axe-2 XL would do what I'm trying to do here, and what I'm trying to do here is effects. I'm not using it for amp modeling. This is a multi-effects unit, and so any of the Axe-Fx units will do that really, really well. Eventide, again, if you're doing an 80s, 90s rack, you've got to have an Eventide of some sort. I did actually start out with the 4000, or was it the 4500 or whatever. It was really noisy. So I went with the Eventide Eclipse. It's quieter and it's smaller. So I found it just worked for me. So I'm using that for the D tunes. And then there's nothing that's ever going to beat the Lexicon PCM70, and as you can see, hopefully you can see there, we've got circular delays and pan delays. The loop trick was using the pan delays. I know he gets shouted about as you know, the user of circular delays, but it's actually the pan delays is his main sound, and the circular delay sort of sits underneath it, and he uses that sometimes on his, you know, more ludicrous over the top sort of sounds. But Luke's basic lead sound is a pan delay. That's what he uses, pan delay, maybe a bit of detune, maybe a bit of chorus, but it's all about the pan delay. Hilarious that it's just a preset, like he doesn't edit it that much. Might change the feedback a tiny bit, might change the delay time to sync up with the song, but it's just a pan delay. Another tip and trick that I found works really well, I did want to try and get some of the Bradshaw stuff because, like I said, it was influenced by Luke. So Custom Audio Japan, they are awesome. Bob, and if you do see this, Bob, please correct me if I'm wrong. Bob doesn't seem to be making too much stuff nowadays, certainly not at the volume that he was doing in the 80s and the 90s, so it can be a little bit challenging to find some custom audio stuff. Custom Audio Japan seem to have a much higher production rate, so just where it's at, I'll talk through everything and how it's all wired together in just a second. We've got, of course, the custom audio preamp. That's totally all about Luke. And then, of course, we've got the VHT or Fryette power amp. Again, that's totally about the Luke vibe. So, how's it all working? We are going the rack gizmo straight into the front of the rack gizmo, and then loops 1, 2, 3, and 4 are pre the custom audio preamp. So think of it sort of like pedals, and I do have 1 or 2 pedals. I think I've got 1 pedal, the Rockaway Archer, hiding around the back. I'll show you that in a minute. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 are before the preamp. We've got Rockaway Archer, we've got the BBE, we've got the compressor, and we've got the fractal running before the preamp. So that's loops 1, 2, 3, and 4. So before the preamp, like I said, is the Rockaway Archer up there. We've got the BBE, we've got the Dolby, and then the bottom line here. So the bottom blue line, we've got a drive pedal, just another different type of drive, not the Archer. We've got phaser, flanger, rotary, and tremolo. So these are all traditionally before the amp stage or the preamp stage. So that's why I've put them all on the bottom line there. And then we've got loops 5, 6, 7, and 8, and I'm only looking at the top unit here. 5, 6, 7, and 8 are post preamp sounds. Now, why have I got another rack gizmo? Well, I ran out of loops. So loop 8, you'll notice, is on in the top rack gizmo, and then loops 6 and 7 in the bottom rack gizmo are also on. So what loop 8 does is sends it to the second rack gizmo. It's just the way I've done things. Look, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I know RJM do have units with more loops. There's a bunch of manufacturers that use more loops. I just went with the rack gizmo because it's nice and cheap, but the penalty was I ran out of loops. So after the preamp, we've got, of course, the line 6 for modulation stuff. I'm just using it for chorus. I've got the Korg doing the 1210 stuff. So yeah, the Fractal is doing some of the heavy lifting after the preamp, and we'll come back to that in a moment. I might show you that a little bit later. But we've got, of course, the Eventide doing the good old D tune, and then of course we've got the Lexicon doing their fabulous delays. Now, if you know anything about custom audio mixers, they have a mix 1 and then they have a mix 2. So mix 1 will often then cascade into mix 2. And you typically put your modulation stuff in mix 1 and then your reverbs and delays in mix 2. Again, I've run out of channels. I've got too much going on. So this one here with mix 1 and mix 2 is a little bit different. What I need is 5 inputs, and so that's why I got another mixer. So this mixer here has 5 inputs, and I'm running 5 inputs into that, and then I take the output of that into mix 1, and mix 2 is just the Lexicon delays. I know it's a little bit strange and a bit complicated, but that was the only way I could figure out how to make it work. Coming back to the Fractal stuff, we've got things like this happening. So we've got chorus and a bit of reverb happening on this patch here. Gates, as I said, are really, really important. So got just a bit of reverb happening on that. Chorus is there, but I don't have it turned on. And again, gates are critical for keeping it really, really quiet. Chorus is there, but it's not coming from the Fractal. It is coming from the line 6 on this one. And so when you look down at this, the RGM, you can see we've got Eventide turned on for the D tunes, we've got Korg for the 1210s, and the Lexicons running all the delays. I can turn on the line 6, the Mod Pro, if I really need it. Pedals, I've got a volume pedal. Again, this is really helpful. So the volume is being managed by the Fractal. It's been really useful for that sort of thing. And of course the wah is also coming from the Fractal because it's running before the preamps. So really, really helpful there. All right, let's see how it sounds. Let's have a look at some sounds. Pay attention to the loops. You'll see those changing here, and we'll go through the different sounds. Just a mention again, there's no right or wrong way of doing this for me personally. I only use MIDI with the Fractal. This controls the Fractal and the RJMs just to kick in the loops. Everything else is just set and forget. Again, a little bit of an inspiration of Luke there. He didn't use MIDI to switch presets on the circular delay and the pan delay, just turned it on and kicked in the loop. And that way, anyway, I found you get better decays. So the decay of the delay will continue, and I know, effects units rather claim to do feedback and trails and all of that sort of junk, but yeah, I just found it works better for me like that. Just keep it simple, especially trying to run MIDI through 5 or 6 units. You will get some delay with the switching, unless you want to get a separate MIDI box, and even then still, these are really, really old units. So again, just a tip, a trick, be careful with the MIDI. I chose not to use it. I'm using the modern stuff for the MIDI, so That is just the clean. We'll just go to clean. Forgot to mention also just the dry sound is coming through the Friedman head, and of course the wets are going through the Fryer power amps. So left and right. Apologies, it's iPhone audio. I don't have an audio card that can do this sort of complex stuff, but hopefully you'll get the idea anyway. So clean. So hopefully you can see there we have the BBE and the Dolby. See the lights moving there, and that certainly makes that a very, very clean, almost a bit bright and toppy sort of sound. It's obviously EQ'd that way. We've got a little bit of chorus and a little bit of reverb coming from the Axe effects in this one. I don't know why I did it like that, but anyway, we just did. And one of the lexicons, doing the good old pan delay thing. Clean 2 is the classic 80s sort of sound. So for this one, for some strange reason, I've kicked in the Mod Pro for the chorus. I think probably just because it's a more predominant chorus sort of sound. I might go back and edit that, but anyway. What else have we got running? Again, we've got the BBE and the Dolby in the front end. Very much that clean sound of the late 80s was heavily influenced by the Dolby compressors. We've also got the Eventide D tunes. So it's a D tune, a pitch D tune, as well as the chorus, which is giving it that, you know, that really sort of modulated sound. The Korg is doing the 1210, and we've just got one of the lexicons on there. Now, the crystal delay thing is actually coming from the fractal, and that's just the way I used it. I'm only using the Eventide for D tunes, so this is something that I saw Luke doing, and certainly something that I learned as I started to put things together. MIDI in these old units, Eventide, I'm looking at you, is not great, and so switching MIDI presets can sometimes introduce a bit of delay, and just spend hours and hours trying to program presets into the right memory slots. So when you go to preset 1, you get your lead sound, or preset 2 and you get your rhythm sound or whatever. It's just really not worth the time, and I couldn't be bothered with it. So I noted Luke seemed to subscribe to the same idea, and this even goes back to like the early 90s or so. He would just put it on pan delay, circular delay, and just leave it. And then his looping device would kick in the effect. Effectively, he's just turning on the signal to the unit on and off, but he wouldn't switch presets in his individual units, set and forget. So unless you want to use 128 different presets, I'm finding this is more than acceptable. So yeah, coming back to the original point, the crystal delays is coming from the fractal. It's got an amazing crystal delay sort of thing in there that does that 80s clean sort of sound. So I'm using it for that, and then like I said, that frees up the Eventide just to keep doing the detune thing. Then we've got Dirty One, and Dirty One is pretty simple. In fact, it's really simple. It's just a reverb. Cannot stress again gates, and I'll show you the back of the board just after we're done here. But I've got gates running in the fractal, and I've got gates before the preamp and a gate after the preamp, and that's my volume full up, not a sound. So it's essential, definitely do that. And dead quiet, so really happy with that. It took a lot of effort and a lot of mucking around to figure it out, but we got there in the end. Rhythm sort of Dirty 2, we've kicked in the Eventide for a bit more of a Toto sort of, big modulated rhythm sound. And again, just a bit of reverb happening there. I think we've got a tiny bit of chorus from the fractal as well. Total 80s. Then finally, we've got lead number 1. And lead number 1, we've got the Korg, the Lexicon delay, and the Mod Pro running there. So there's a tiny bit of noise. I don't know if you can hear it there, but certainly noise to signal ratio is reasonably okay. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I'm going to turn the volume all the way up on the guitar. And I'm essentially getting no extra hum. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. Finally, excess all in, everything on. We've got the Eventide, the Korg, both Lexicons, so circular and pan delay. It's been really interesting to play around with that actually. Again, just seeing some videos and the way Luke talks about that and him demonstrate it, it's really quite subtle. It's really interesting. Look, I'll take the pan delay off. This is just circular delay. It's really subtle. So I guess sort of from a mix perspective, we've got pan delays running at about, I'm going to say 75%, and we've got circular delays probably running at about 60%. So it's down there, and you can hear, hopefully you can hear that. It's really subtle, and of course when the louder hand delay comes in over the top, it's very difficult to hear it, but it's more just sort of ambience. I guess it's just more of a complex sort of delay because it's a pan and a circular delay all happening at the same time. So it's been really interesting to sort of play around with the levels there and see how it all works and how he might have done it. So finally, I think I might have mentioned the pedals. I've got the volume on the fractal. Which is really useful. Of course, we've got the good old wah in the fractal. Which is nice. And finally, let's have a look at the back. Okay, this is often the bit nobody wants to show, so I won't spend too much time down here. Just a couple of quick tips and tricks. Of course, power is off to the side. So either left or right. God, I wish manufacturers would put power on the same side. Really annoying when you've got one on the left and one on the right. Anyway, power goes down the side, audio goes down the middle just to try and keep things separate. I don't think it makes too much. I didn't find it made too much of a difference with regards to noise and things. I think it's just, cleanliness. And I guess if you're adding 1,000 power cables, then you might get a little bit of noise. But look, most cables pretty well insulated nowadays. So don't panic if your audio goes a little bit near your power stuff. What I did want to recommend was all of the patch cables up the top there, EBS. And the reason I'm recommending them is they are gold plated on the end, and I really did notice a big difference in noise ratios and just cleanliness of the sound. It just seemed to really come alive. So wherever possible, I've done all my patching with the EBS stuff. So yeah, really highly recommend that. If you can't get the EBS stuff, try and find anything that's gold plated. It's a really, really good conductor. Couple of other things. I did find the radial stuff is also really, really good. They've thought of all sorts of bizarre and weird sorts of things that we are trying to do. So I've got, this is an ABY pedal. So it's taking my mono signal coming out of the preamp and converting it effectively into a stereo sound, and then I send that into the Eventide for true stereo on both sides. I know the Eventide can accept a mono signal, but I just wanted to make sure it got done right. There's the Rockaway Archer down there. It's just, again, it's set and forget. We've got the ISP Decimator 2 pedal, which is just astounding. Cannot recommend this highly enough. Just an amazing pedal for noise. Just like incredible. So that's doing an amazing job. I think that's working after the preamp. And then I've also got the MXR SmartGate down there, which is before the preamp, or other way around. But anyway, that's been also really helpful. So the two of those combined are also working with the gates in the fractal. So effectively I've got 3, sometimes even 4 gates running, which is why it's keeping everything nice and quiet. With regards to power, got the Kiox, I think I'm saying that right, just running some DC stuff for the pedals, so that's nice. And also got the Voodoo Labs AC unit, so I found that really, really useful for especially the RJM things, which are all running off AC, 9-volt AC. So rather than trying to plug in a million wall wart adapter things, I've just got the Voodoo Labs AC, and so I'm running 4 outputs, I think, from that, just on 9-volt AC, which I needed. So that was an absolute lifesaver. All the other pedal stuff, all the other power stuff is of course just your normal power conditioner. You're going to need a power conditioner, so look at that. Otherwise, not a lot of MIDI. The MIDI stuff is just run by RJM. RJM do sell MIDI junction boxes, or rather a power box, phantom power for the Mastermind, and then that goes directly into the Fractal and the RJMs to control all the MIDI stuff, and that's really about it. So anyway, hope all of that has been useful, guys. Hopefully you've got some tips and tricks.